Very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashingsani Veerasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines first. The Election Commission fixed a date for the general elections and blamed parliamentarians for not raising their voice on delayed PC polls. World Bank Group warns on Sri Lanka's GDP rate and indicates a possible U-shaped recovery for the economy, refusing the V-shaped recovery forecasted by the CBSL. News in detail. Election Commission today finally announced that the general elections 2020, which was postponed to June 20th, will be held on the August 5th. Chairman of the Election Commission, Mahinda Deshapriya, also stressed that the general election was postponed due to the COVID-19 outbreak and otherwise the Commission had no any interest on postponing the elections.
We Commission has decided about the election date and other things. ඇත්තටම මැතිවරණ කමිෂන් සභාව තියෙන්නේ ඡන්ද තියන්න. අපිට තියන්න බැරි වුණේ වෙන මොකක්වත් හින්දා නෙවෙයි කොරෝනා නිසා. පළාත් සභා ඡන්ද වීසීම අතුරුදන් කරේවත් තිබ්බේ නැත්තේ අපි නෙවෙයි. ඒක තිබ්බේ නැත්තේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව 50 සම්මත කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ආවට පස්සේ යෝජනාවක්වත් නොදා නොකර ඉඳලා. සියලු දෙනාම වක් කියන්න ඕනේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව නියෝජනය කරපු අය. අපි නෙවෙයි. පළාත් පාලන ආයතන පරක්කු කිරීමත් අපි කතා කරේ නැත්නම් අපි ඒ 93වත් ගැසට් කරේ නැත්නම් අදත් නඩුව යනවා. තවමත් එනං ඡන්ද විමසීම නැහැ. අපි පුළුවන් අපේ උපරිම උත්සාහය කරලා දිනවා. උපරිම උත්සාහය කරනවා. ජුනි මාස 20 වෙනි දිනට නියමිත වූ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මහා මැතිවරණය 2020 අගෝස්තු මාස 5 වෙනි දින පැවැත්වෙන බව මැතිවරණ කමිෂන් සභාවේ සභාපති මහින්ද දේශප්‍රිය සමාජික ජනාධිපති නීතිඥ නලින් අබේසේකර සමාජික මහාචාර්ය රත්නීය හූල් යන අපති දෙනා විසින් ඒකමතිකව තීරණය කළා ගැසට් නිවේදනය දැන් අත්සන් කර එය රජයේ මුද්‍රණාලාධිපති නියමිත යවූ බව මෙයින් නිවේදනය කරනවා.
The government today announced that the religious activities in the country will be allowed to commence from this Friday with the participation of up to only 50 participants. The government also announced that zoological gardens and national parks are allowed to resume activities by next Monday under strict health guidelines. Accordingly, only 2 positive cases of COVID-19 were reported yesterday. One of them is a naval person under quarantine and the other one is a returnee from Qatar who was at the Ampara quarantine centre. In the meantime, Sri Lanka Navy says that 45 more naval personnel who had tested positive for the COVID-19 virus have recovered from the disease. Thus, the total number of coronavirus recoveries from the Navy has increased to 608 as of today evening. Moreover, 1,122 patients have recovered from the coronavirus, while there are 726 active cases as of 1 p.m. today. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, has issued health guidelines on reopening of religious places to devotees and on the recommencement of tuition classes in the country under strict guidelines. Thus, from this Friday, a maximum of 50 persons are allowed to gather at any place of worship, maintaining social distancing. Places of worship which cannot facilitate 50 persons will be allowed to have gatherings with half the number of people that it can accommodate. Tuition classes will be permitted to reopen from June 29th, Monday, with a maximum of 100 students permitted to participate in a single tuition class while maintaining social distancing. Locations which cannot accommodate even 100 students within the classrooms or halls will be allowed to hold tuition classes for half the number of students that usually participate in tuition classes at the location. All zoological gardens and national parks in the country will be reopened from next Monday. The World Bank report predicts that Sri Lanka's GDP would contract by 3.2% this year and it will remain flat at 0% next year. The World Bank, in its June 2020 flagship report titled Global Economic Prospects, stresses that the COVID-19 pandemic has sharply weakened consumption and manufacturing activity and has damaged the tourism and other services industries across the South Asia region. The report shows that it includes sharp declines in tourist arrivals in economies like Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Maldives. This includes a decline in arrivals from China, a key market since early this year. The report also notes that in Sri Lanka, the combination of falling tourism, manufacturing activity and services associated with the pandemic is envisaged to cause output to contract by 3.2% despite the earlier recovery from the April 2019 terrorist attacks. The World Bank also cautioned that government debt refinancing needs in South Asia can be vulnerable to a deeper reversal of global capital flows and higher global financial market uncertainty. A further pullback in capital flows would likely reduce investment activity and private sector credit growth, the report added. Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructs officials to find immediate solutions to issues faced by farmers relating to the supply, distribution and use of fertilizer. President made these comments during a discussion held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday to review the current status of the fertilizer supply and distribution. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that short, medium and long-term solutions should be found to address the issues related to fertilizer supply and distribution. The President highlighted the importance of shifting towards organic fertilizer by gradually decreasing the usage of chemical fertilizer. The farmers should be apprised on how to use fertilizer effectively through agricultural officers and mass media, President said. The farmers in the north prefer to use more organic fertilizer, and the governor of the northern province, PSM Charles, said the harvest is higher both in quality and quantity. If the farmers in other areas too use organic fertilizer like in the past, it will help solving many health hazards, President added. President Rajapaksa instructed the officials to pay special attention to the production of organic fertilizer according to relevant standards and to find out the varieties of crops that will grow fast using organic fertilizer. President said the demand for chemical fertilizers can be brought down by developing organic fertilizer production as a large-scale industry. The requirement of studying the distribution of organic fertilizer in the world market was also discussed. Elucidating its recovery plan amidst COVID-19 pandemic, Sri Lanka Export Development Board stresses that it aims to promote Sri Lanka as a logistics hub of the world in order to earn foreign exchange. Director of Export Services at EDB, MKSK Malveni, made these observations, speaking exclusively to State of Business of Art Television.
We are working with the logistics sector in order to earn some foreign exchange into the country. So for the logistics sector, we are trying to do some procedural things in order to get rid of some procedural bottlenecks in the on-report trade sector. So that is also we are doing at the moment. So we are using this period to get these problems which is having for the on-report trade. So we are trying to clear that on-report trade procedure and things like that, and also to promote Sri Lanka as a logistics hub for the world so that we can earn foreign exchange.
Moreover, the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, as the responsible national authority for organizing Sri Lanka's participation at Expo 2020 Dubai under the guidance of the Ministry of Industrial Export and Investment Promotion, has decided to vote in favor of the postponement of the exhibition, considering the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic locally as well as globally. Thus, Expo 2020 Dubai is gearing up to help shape a post-pandemic world and create a better future for all after a two-thirds majority of Bureau International des Expositions member states voted in favor of postponing the next World Expo by 1 year. This global mega event will now run from 1st October 2021 to 31st March 2022. The postponement of the event allows all participants to safely navigate the impact of COVID-19 and allows the World Expo to focus on a collective desire for new thinking to identify solutions to some of the greatest challenges of our time. Frontline Socialist Party members who were arrested during a protest in Colombo yesterday were granted bail last night after being produced before the Fort Magistrate. In the meantime, the Frontline Socialist Party candidate Pubudu Jayagouda stresses that the quarantine laws have now become a mockery since the quarantine regulations and laws are not imposed on elitist politicians and general public equally. 53 Frontline Socialist Party members who were arrested during a protest in Colombo have been granted bail yesterday after being produced before the Fort Magistrate. The two groups were arrested in Colombo Town Hall and Kolpiti during the protests that were organized against the death of George Floyd in the United States of America. Protesters were arrested for violating a court order and for breaking quarantine regulations. However, addressing a media briefing, the Frontline Socialist Party Politburo member Pubudu Jayagouda yesterday added that the majority of the protesters were arrested while they were engaged in a peaceful, silent protest following health regulations and challenged anyone to come with fair reasons as to why the protests were boycotted. He further added that the quarantine laws and regulations have become a mockery since the said laws are not enforced equally on general public and elitist politicians. He added that quarantine laws were not enforced when the UNP trade unions acted violently outside the Sirikoto office and several politicians protested against the arrest of the former minister Rajitha Senaratne. Jayagouda added that quarantine laws were breached during the funeral of politician Arumugam Thundaman and father of former parliamentarian Dilan Pereira, Marshall Pereira, who was the former governor and the President's Counsel. We'll be back with stock updates after this short break. Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a mixed note today. The all-share price index gained 4.17 points to close at 4,917.54 and the S&P SL20 dropped 2.83 points to close at 2,039.07. The turnover was 1.3 billion rupees and over 35 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. And that's all the news for today. See you tomorrow at the same time with State of Business. Until then, take care. Good night.